Good afternoon, everyone, and a special welcome to the foreign guests in still Europe, our friends in the United Kingdom. Good evening to all attending from Asia, and good morning to everyone attending from the Americas. A warm welcome to all the speakers and our fellow organizing partners, AIPH, Tim Briercliffe, who will be moderating this session today. Is joining us live from Oxfordshire, the UK. Floriculture International, important media partner. And the session is brought to you live from the World Horti Center here in the Netherlands. And we produce this as a series of events that address relevant and current topics that help improve the business of our partners. World Horti Center is a private initiative. Over 130 companies are partner here. And they have one common goal, actually, and that is collaboration. As you perhaps just noticed in the commercial preceding the opening, a prominent Dutchman in floriculture, Mr. Jaap van Duin, founder of the Dutch Flower Group, explained his passion for collaboration. And he made the point that businesses by themselves and also individuals are never 100% complete. But if you collaborate, even with opponents sometimes, it fills the voids and it makes the picture complete. Kind of a philosophical entree, I suppose, but nevertheless, there is an important truth in that, and also an analogy to today's topic. But those speakers following me will hopefully address for them. Today's session, obviously, I should make a small disclaimer in this context, is about the Brexit topic. And I'm sure that many of you who joined us now today are facing uncertain times and might have a lot of questions. What we present you today with is personal views, personal expertise from each individual speakers to the best of their knowledge from their own standpoint and backgrounds. Organizations that have to, as a prime role actually, try to figure out structure and facts in the chaos that has become to surround the Brexit negotiations. But it is in difficult times as these that the collaboration can shed a light on questions that individuals may have. So hence the disclaimer is, please consider the content given to the best of our capacity and knowledge. No legal consequences hopefully will follow. And following this session on the website of World Horti Center, and also with links from AIPH and Floriculture International, obviously, we will kind of keep a track on the Q&As. We've seen the first session on October 29th about this topic. Huge traffic in direct questions. So if you have individual questions that cannot be asked in the plenary group, in the chat function, don't hesitate to email us, contact us. Otherwise, just use the chat function. I see a lot of activity going on there. We have moderators on site, and also we can count on external expertise from the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. They have a Brexit team standby to help address questions you might have. For now, long introduction. I would like to introduce you to your moderator today, Mr. Tim Briercliffe, Secretary General of AIPH, and he is joining us live from the UK. We'll be moderating the session. So, Tim, best of luck, and over to you.
Well, good afternoon and good morning, wherever you are in the world. It really is great to see you, well, not to see you, but at least to know that you are here listening in for this webinar today on Brexit. Thank you very much, Joep, for your introduction. And it's my pleasure today to be able to moderate this event albeit from my home rather than in the lovely facility in the World Horti Center. Thank you very much for Joop and to the World Horti Center, for all of you, for the preparations and work you have done to enable us to put on this webinar today. Yes, my name is Tim Briercliffe. I am the Secretary General of AIPH, which is the International Association of Horticulture Producers. We're also the publisher of Floriculture International magazine, FCI, and together we are bringing this event to you today as well. As a little bit of background for you, and AIPH, we are the world's champion for the power of plants, and we have our members are associations that represent the interests of growers and producers of ornamental plants and flowers in different countries around the world. We have a number of different initiatives that we run for the industry. We produce annual statistical information, including a statistical yearbook that we produce along with our colleagues in Union Fleur. We run the International Grower of the Year Awards competition. We run Green City initiatives. We approve international horticultural exhibitions. And we do work supporting growers in topics such as novelty protection, sustainability, plant health, and so on. So it really is a pleasure to be able to welcome you all today to this webinar. I need to point out to you that the webinar will be recorded and it will be sent to you afterwards with presentations as well, so you can see those. At the end of this session, we're going to have each speaker is going to go one after the other. I will introduce each one. And then at the end, we will have a panel session where we can have some questions. So if you have questions that come up in the talks, please put them down, preferably in English, and then I can read them, and then we can share them with the panelists later on. Well, we try to get through as many of them as we can. So yes, please stay for the panel session. Please also, I remind the presenters to please stay for the panel session at the end. It would not be the same without them, so please stay around for that. And I'd also like to thank for this one the support of the Horticultural Trades Association for their support for this event from the UK as well. Just a reminder, if you don't know, they were doing another webinar on Friday, which is focused on the cut flower sector. This one is focused on the plants, trees, bulbs sector. So let's get started. Now, Brexit is something which provokes very strong opinions and views. It does here in the UK, and I know it does across Europe and around the world. And today we're not going to go over all of those kind of arguments. We are where we are, and we have to deal with what is coming in the next few weeks and into 2021. We're going to look at what Brexit is going to mean for this sector, what the industry needs to do to be able to manage the changes which are going to come about for that. And of course, there are many points that we have to consider, things that we don't even know yet still what are going to happen. First of all, is there even going to be a deal, or is it going to be no deal? What are the kind of customs bureaucracy which may be required? What about the phytosanitary requirements and plant health issues? What about tariffs which may come? What about delays which may be experienced in trade and the costs associated with them? What about product in and out of Northern Ireland? What about exchange rates? All of these kind of things. We may not answer all of your questions today, but I hope that we can certainly get a better insight and a better understanding together, so we can find a way to make this industry work smoothly still through these difficult waters which we are going to face as we enter into 2021. Thankfully, it is not my job to be able to give you all the answers and all the explanations, but we are joined today by a great team of presenters, and they are going to help us in understanding what goes on. So we're going to start off with Sally Cullimore from HTA. We'll go on to Eline Berg from Rabobank. we will have Stefan Koopman from Rabobank. Sorry, Eline van der Berg was from Royal FloraHolland, not Rabobank. And then we will have Bruce Harnett from Kernot Park Plants in the UK and Henk Westerhof from Anthos in the Netherlands. So we've got a lot of content to get through. I asked the speakers please to keep to the time schedule, but without any more delay, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, and our first speaker is Sally Cullimore. Sally is policy manager for the Horticultural Trades Association in the UK. She's going to look at the Brexit challenges for plant tree bulb importers and exporters, and how the UK production and the UK retail industry is preparing for Brexit. Sally has worked in the ornamental horticulture industry for many years, and she, for producers, and 3 years ago she joined HTA as its policy manager. Sally's work involves raising the profile of the horticulture industry to government, and is focusing on EU exit policy, and this is certainly the focus, not surprisingly, of her work at the moment. So thank you very much, and I'm pleased to pass over to Sally now. Welcome, Sally.
Thanks, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here, and welcome to everybody. Like Tim says, my name is Sally Cullimore, and I'm the policy manager here at the HTA. So the Horticultural Trades Association represents the whole ornamental supply chain across the UK. So within our membership, we have garden centres, growers, landscapers and garden goods manufacturers. So there's a whole lot going on at the moment with EU exit. And part of my remit is to highlight the difficulties and discuss issues and work on solutions with the UK government on EU exit matters which affect our members. So I'm just going to share my screen now because I have a presentation for you. I'm hoping it's there. Okay. So 2020, well, it's been a spectacularly different year for many reasons, and not least because industry and governments in both the EU and the UK have arrived maybe late getting down to the detail when it comes down to understanding how the plant trade between the UK and the EU will actually work. Obviously, of intense interest to us all attending this webinar is how plants and plant products will move between the EU and the UK after the 1st of January. So I was hoping to be able to say something about a deal at this point, and I have sounded like a broken record for the last 3 months, but it has to be said, we still await results of negotiations, and the detail isn't even clear yet. But we are inching closer to clarity, with only 20 working days left until everything changes. The HTA currently is highlighting to political figures in the UK government that their rhetoric of free trade and a global Britain is being undermined by this desire to gold plate the current plant health regulations, while at the same time setting up our own plant health regime. We believe at HTA that it's about getting the balance right between biosecurity of the UK and allowing the smooth flow of trade through the traditional trading routes, which need to be maintained while reinforcing the message that the biosecurity of the UK is high up on everyone's agenda. I mean, no one wants to be the one to bring in that pest or that disease that will affect subsequent trade or even devastate the natural environment of the UK's green and pleasant land. As I'm sure I'm not sure, but maybe you are aware that actually the first version of the border operating model, published by the Cabinet Office's agency, the Border Protocol and Delivery Group, actually had plants for planting listed as high-risk plants. And this was alongside controlled goods, which included guns, ammunition, torture devices, explosives, and weapons of mass destruction. And at the time, you didn't know whether to laugh or despair. And at that stage, plants would be controlled from day one in a proposed 3-stage process, while other sectors would get more time to prepare. Cut flowers and fresh produce, for example, have until 1st of April before they are required to travel with a phytosanitary certificate and make pre-notification. And general goods have until the 1st of July, when everything will then be expected to make customs declarations in advance and travel through a BCP, which is a border control post. The first bond defined those high-risk plants as all those that were included in the EU plant health regulations. So plants for planting, because they were included in the EU plant passport regime, they would come under that banner. It also stated that all of these high-risk plants, as well as being pre-notified and requiring a phytosanitary or a PC, would also have to be inspected at a border control post from day one. So after initial discussions with the industry, the government decided to relent on these actions. So by the time the second edition of the BOM was published in October, those high-risk plants were redesignated high priority plants. And the requirement for inspections and checks to take place at BCPs have been replaced with a requirement for place of destination inspections, based on an as yet to be disclosed frequency of checks dictated by pre-notifying imports on a new IT system called AIPH. This system was to be launched this November for plants and plant products, but these processes will be required from day one in the second version, and the existing three-stage approach would stand as per the first border operating model. But AIPH and its sister system for exports from GB, ECHO, will now not be ready for the 1st of January. They will probably be online sometime in February. They're still subject to development, and they do have some issues to overcome before being fit for purpose. So in the meantime, all companies wishing to import plants into Great Britain, so everybody who is located within Great Britain and wishes to import plants, will need to pre-notify consignments on the existing PEACH system, and exports will be lodged also on an existing system, Economist. Neither of these legacy systems are designed for the expected volume of trade as we progress through the season in 2021. So before I go on to describe a little bit of the detail and summarise where we are and what is yet to be done, I just want to be clear that I am presenting this from a GB business point of view. And also, just a point, and Tim touched on it earlier, the HTA also don't represent the cut flower trade, so I can't make comments on that side of things. So this document, this process map, which is relatively complicated and represents the period January to July for plant imports. It identifies where there are expected costs, so everything with a red square around it, where a red highlight shows that that's where costs are expected to be incurred, whether they might be invoice costs or administrative costs, staff costs, or combination of that. What this model doesn't even show is the interaction with the UK plant passport system, which will be introduced from the 1st of January. So that cost has to be factored in too. So on this slide, we'll talk only about plant import notifications into GB. This process is January to the 1st of July only, and it's designed to show that it is still rather complicated and there are areas still requiring clarification. It's also worth noting that in GB, plant import inspection fees are suspended until the 1st of April. And that includes the fees for the phytosanitary documentation check, which applies to all consignments. So firstly, registration is required on the IT system. I've left it as AIPH because that will be the long-term system going forward. Like I said, PEACH for January, AIPH when it's ready. This is in order to send a pre-notification of a plant consignment's arrival into GB. We do note that DEFRA have said AIPH and PEACH training will be available, but this isn't apparent yet. I believe they do have some webinars upcoming. And like I've said, there are a few issues already coming to light regarding the AIPH system. And we have said to DEFRA that they should not introduce IPAFs until it is absolutely ready, and it must enable a smooth upload of data for businesses, and it should be easy to understand and utilise. So each premises that will be receiving a direct plant delivery from the EU must register as a place of destination with the GB Plant Health Authority. This is so they can receive import inspections on consignments, and every peach IPAF's pre-notification must then nominate a place of delivery where the inspection takes place. So once the process moves to BCPs in July, those pods will not be required, pod being a place of destination. And import inspections then become the responsibility of the carrier arriving at the BCP. There is a two-step process to conducting your pre-notification. So firstly, a copy of the phytosanitary certificate is received in electronic form from the EU-based supplier. The EU-based supplier must arrange that with EU-based plant health inspectors. That PC is uploaded and it's attached to that pre-notification by the importer. The pre-notification is basically a list of every plant species that is being imported on that delivery under that phytosanitary certificate to that place of destination. And when you make that pre-notification, you will get an automatic flag that will be received by those pre-notifying that an inspection is to be made at the pod. So pre-notification must be made 4 hours before the consignment reaches the border of the GB. That is if transported by air or on a roll-on, roll-off ferry or via Eurotunnel. Everywhere else is subject to 24 hours notice of arrival. So HTA working really hard with DEFRA to see if we can get released a list of species they're targeting for inspection, along with an expected frequency of inspection. So we do expect that to be a minimum of 10% import inspections, but we do know that those frequencies are expected to increase depending on what species you're bringing in. So we can certainly expect to see Xylella high-risk hosts high up on AFA's target list, AFA being the Animal and Plant Health Agency that is responsible for making the inspections GB. The pre-notifier then sets the time that the plants will be available for the inspector. This will be within inspectors' working hours. We still don't have a firm agreement on that, but we expect it to be at least 60 days a week and basic office hours. The time can actually be amended on the pre-notification system. So if anything untoward happens, such as a lorry is delayed, the ferry is delayed, it can be amended right up to the stated time of arrival. The inspection then takes place within a 4-hour window at the time set on the system. Also, if the inspector can't make it or doesn't turn up for some reason, then those plants on that consignment are then automatically released. So if there's more than one place of destination on one delivery lorry, they can all travel under one phytosanitary certificate. That is if all those places of destinations are under one company. So, for example, there's one customer with multi-drop deliveries on one truck, that's one phytosanitary certificate. What we're working on now, with so little time left, is to see if one truck can travel under one phytosanitary certificate, but to different premises of different companies. This will certainly save on the EU side inspection costs and EU side time and pre-notification purposes. So now we move on to what it looks like come July. So we've bypassed the April stage 2, where cut flowers and fresh produce are subject to the same requirements as plants for planting. And we arrive at the 1st of July, which is basically the final stage. So this is when everything must have both a customs declaration and arrive at a border control post when entering Great Britain. So lots more process to go through at the border, and the potential for delay is very high, but there are similar costs involved. So also, once the GB business receives the goods, they are cleared and there's no further requirements to be done. So what is HTA actually working on with the UK government? For those that don't know, DEFRA is the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, which is basically the department that we communicate most with. These are the guys that actually set the import-export strategy for plants and plant products. So border control posts. So once BCPs come online on the 1st of July, it's really important that they have the right facilities to unload trucks selected for plant health inspections. It has to be said, much of the infrastructure required still has not been built or set up. We are assured that BCPs will have the same facilities as current BCPs, which are equipped to receive imports, but they certainly should have sheltered areas, temperature-controlled facilities, skilled staff available to unload and reload packed trucks properly, and sufficient capacity to cope with the hundreds of thousands, likely millions, of plant and plant product consignments, and that includes fresh produce and plants and cut flowers that arrive from the EU every year. And lastly, we want to ensure that BCPs are manned 24/7 for inspection purposes. There's also an important question around liability for product damaged when unloaded and reloaded for inspection. There is also the possibility of premises being licensed or audited to be either an enhanced place of destination or like a mini BCP. It's certainly one of the solutions on relieving the expected pressure at border control posts and ensuring product is unloaded correctly by skilled personnel. And it would allow those businesses that wish to be an enhanced pod or a mini BCP to be part of a trusted trader scheme, and hopefully that will aid trade flow through to final destinations. Lastly, we've also mooted the possibility of AFA inspectors being permanently based in EU locations, something that does currently have precedent, I believe. And this could aid the pre-inspection of some loads ready to make their journey, and again aid the flow of live product through the border without stopping.
All right, Sally, can you just try to conclude quite soon, if that's okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So I know a number of EU-side businesses are offering GB customers the option that they will act as UK importers as well as EU exporters, employing UK-based agents as third parties. So just covering a few potential items that might need to be addressed after the first. Forward planning for costs. It's really important that itemising areas where costs are passed on will help enormously when evaluating the costs subsequently of EU exit. And please do decide how to communicate an import inspection to customers in GB. Be clear about who's receiving the inspection flag from the notification system. And communication is key. All round, they need to be clear and transparent, who's responsible for which costs, which actions, and also where liability lies if there's an issue. And as soon as you're able, do a test run for the expected processes. And do allow your customers and suppliers to explore options. Some may have found their own customs agents, for example, who will be able to communicate with your own agents. So don't just accept the first solution that comes along. And it's all changed 1st of July. So we have explained what we are working on for post-July. And there's definitely scope GB side for locations to become mini BCPs. So in conclusion, there's a lot to do in just the 20 days left. There will be hiccups and bumps, so let's hope that a pragmatic approach is taken at both sides of the border, both with officials and also with businesses. And for the future, there are lots of areas where we can streamline trade flow. So, for example, e-phytos, e-plant passports, APNR at borders, just to name a few. And it is important that the EU grants third country equivalents ASAP to GB, in particular for the prohibited high-risk plants list. So these are ACEs, Quercus, Malus. It is an issue. And the UK has actually exempted the EU from this prohibition list as allowing imports. There is political will. If there is political will, then things can move forward in an easier manner. And we are continuing current calls to UK government to get import inspections suspended until July, as we feel the POD system is fraught with difficulties and it's just too little too late. IT systems are not going to be ready, and pre-notification is going to be onerous, costly and difficult. And until negotiations are concluded and Northern Ireland is sorted, that side of things remains a ridiculous system with Northern Ireland, where phytosanitaries are required for sending plants in product from GB to Northern Ireland. And lastly, I can just say good luck to everyone, because despite all the planning and collaboration, there will be issues. But together, I'm really positive that as a collaborative and communicative industry, we can surmount them together.
Well, Sally, thank you very much for that. That was a very helpful review of where we are at the moment and what needs to happen, and as well as your political activity, which I know is very much appreciated within the industry in the UK, and I'm sure across now in other countries as well, as you're fighting all for the industry across those areas. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the panel with us a little bit later on. Now we're going to go on to our next speaker, is Eline van den Berg, Supply Chain and Public Affairs at Royal FloraHolland in the Netherlands. Eline is a program manager of the Holland Flower Alliance, but today she's going to talk to us about the impact of Brexit on the market position of the Netherlands. So welcome, Eline.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tim. And I would like to say goodbye from the Netherlands, from the World Horti Center. And during my presentation, I would like to present the impact analysis we've done within FloraHolland. Like Tim mentioned, I'm working at the Public Affairs Department at Royal FloraHolland. And we have a task force within FloraHolland for the Brexit. And within this task force, we have done an impact analysis, which I would like to present to you. Yeah, and then, of course, the obvious question, why an impact analysis? Because the United Kingdom is a very important export market for the Netherlands, actually the second export market. The value of the Dutch flower export is 855 million euros in 2019. And what we noticed, and of course this is obvious, that a lot of attention this year went to the COVID situation, first in the beginning of this year, because in the first wave, now we're in the middle of the second wave with, again, lockdown measures in different countries with consequences to the flower trade. But we also realized, especially when we started preparing this analysis, that there was little focus on Brexit yet. Although, yeah, like Sally explained already, and everybody knows, it's getting really close now. So, yeah, and everybody was talking about, yeah, we expect there will be more costs involved, there will be more time needed for preparation. So we really wanted to have more insight in this course, in this time, and yeah, as a result, in the economic impact on the export for flowers and plants to the UK. A disclaimer, like everybody knows, there are a lot of uncertainties because the negotiations are still going on. And secondly, in our calculation, we have calculated with estimate figures. So if you have done research for yourself or made a calculation for your own situation as well, of course, then the impact might vary a little bit. To explain about the approach of our analysis, we used 4 building blocks: commercial, operational, phytosanitary, and financial. And I will explain every building block one by one to you and the impact. So first, commercial. Then first, it's important to stress that if we talk about the export of flowers and plants to the UK, that almost 75% consists of cut flowers and 27% plants. And that's important to know because the expected input duty for cut flowers is 8%, and for plants, which is more relevant for this webinar, is expected 0%. If we look at the total impact, so cut flowers and plants together, then the total impact on the export turnover will be approximately 5.8%. On the non-EU cut flowers, like flowers from Kenya, Ethiopia, Africa, or South America, the import duty will remain 0%. So that will be an important change between EU cut flowers and non-EU cut flowers. When we talk about the commercial impact, it's also really good to realize that the preparation of the export documents requires much more strict order process. That really will be a change compared to the actual situation, because you need to have the shipment ready to prepare the documents. So instead of the current situation, it's not possible then anymore to make some last minute changes in the shipment. And that, of course, will have impact also in the relationship between a grower and an exporter, for instance. Concluding, the commercial impact on the export value based on the import duty, what we expect will be 5.8%. Then looking to the operational impact, what you will see is that there are extra customs formalities involved. And we based our impact analysis on some information from the KPMG report, which has been done in 2018. And they have mentioned that approximately the custom formality cost will lie between 78 euro per shipment and 126 euro per shipment. So we calculated with the 78 euro because that seems to be close to what was going to happen. And in relation to the export turnover, the impact will be approximately 0.2%. What is very important to realize, because we realized also that in the KPMG report, there is a bit less attention also to the return flow. So the return shipments of RTIs, the transport items like the trolleys. So that's also good for you to realize that you need to export them from the UK and import them again to the EU, and that there are custom formalities and costs involved. Of course, when you don't have any experience as an exporter with exporting in general, then you have a choice whether you're going to organize this all within your own company or that you're going to outsource these activities to an expeditor. And if you choose for the second part, there are for these services extra costs involved. When we come to the time aspect, how many time will be necessary to do the preparation, then we expect that for an exporter, the expected time needed will be at least 4 extra hours till 24 hours. Why this difference? Like Sally mentioned already, the pre-notification of a shipment in the UK needs to be done 4 hours in advance. But we've also heard some exporters saying that they think they are preparing their process with an extra day in between, because they say we need an extra day to do all the preparation, to apply for the inspection, the phytosanitary inspection. So that's 1 day extra in the process, and 1 day extra keeping products in stock means that you have additional inventory costs like interest, space, and probably also some loss of product. Then the transporter, we all expect, especially in the beginning, there will be waiting times at the border, but hopefully as little as possible. So there might be extra time as well in the process. And we heard also some transporting companies already announcing that they will charge an extra Brexit surcharge. This concluded, we expect that on the operational side, the impact will be approximately 5% plus the 0.2% for operational. Then the phytosanitary impact. What we would like to warn for is there probably might from next year on an import restriction on high risk products like Xylella, houseplants and Cetus. And why is that? Because the UK announced already an import restriction this year, but later on they had to withdraw the restriction because they were still part of the European Union and couldn't decide it just by themselves. But please note that that might be introduced next year again. Then the implementation of the customs formalities in the 3 phases model. So from the 1st of January on, there will be inspection needed for high priority plants and also plant products. From April, all the regulated plants, and from the 1st of July, I see that's missing in the presentation, then the inspection level will be higher. What's clear now is that plants will be submitted to phytosanitary inspection. In the presentation, it says probably flowers not, although that's quite recently that we've heard that probably also from the 1st of April, it might be very well possible that also flowers will need a phytosanitary certificate. So it's, I would like to make a comment on that as well, that also for your specific situation, it's good to realize when you prepare the exporting process, if you combine the shipment with products which are do need a certification and others who are not, whether you choose if you put them together in one shipment or not. The costs we have calculated with are also based on the KPMG report. Then again, they mentioned that they expect the cost will be between 102 euros and 190 euros. We validated these figures also with some exporting companies, and they say it's more possible that the cost will be 190 shipment and not 190 euros per shipment, or perhaps even more. So we've calculated with that amount, and based then again on the export value, the impact will be 0.4%. The fourth building block is the financial one. Yeah, we looked at the disposable income, and what we have worked with, or what we have based it on, is that on forecasts of trading economics, it is expected that the disposable income this year will end negatively, -4%, and that it's also expected that the consumer expenses will decrease with -3%. The downward trend is also expected for the upcoming year. And the expectations will be that it will be on the pre-COVID level early 2024. The expectations are that also the British pound will decline in relation to the euro. So for our financial impact, we have calculated with a currency risk of -4%. And a decrease of the disposable income also with -4%, which means that the total financial impact on the export value will be 8% in total. To summarize all this, we expect that the documentation cost will be 0.6%. The import duty is still uncertain. As long as there is no deal, there is still no certainty about the 8% of the import duty on flowers. Delay, we calculate with 5%. Of course, that might vary, but we know that for sure when we start exporting from January on. The same with currency risk, disposable income. So what we expect is that the total impact might be 19.4%. So that's almost 20%, which is quite impressive. Documentation, like I said, is quite certain. The other factors is depending on the negotiations and also how the situation will look like from the 1st of January on in practice. The possible consequences, what we expect from the Brexit, is that at least for some growers, and especially some cut flower growers of chrysanthemums, lilies and gerberas, we expect that there will be an impact on demand for the flowers and also impact on the price of these products. For buyers, Yeah, like I presented already, there will be additional costs they have to face, and also probably there will be a decrease in demand for flowers, so it will affect their sales to the UK. For Royal FloraHolland, the flower auction, of course, this has an impact on our turnover, what we expect. And we also expect, because there might be a difference in import duty between cut flowers from the EU and cut flowers from outside the EU, that there might be a shift from cut flowers directly to the UK and perhaps not anymore via the Netherlands. Yeah, this was the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Eline, thank you very much for that presentation. Some very interesting research on the impact from Royal FloraHolland there. Anything between 0.6 and 20% of an impact. And so there's still many questions that need to be answered before we can fill in the gaps on there. But thank you for that. And we look forward to asking some questions more in the panel session later on. Many thanks, Eline. Much appreciated. Now we move on to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Stefan Koopman. Stefan is a senior market economist at Rabobank in the Netherlands. He's responsible for analysing developments in the interest and currency markets and communicating to Rabobank target groups. He's very focused on Brexit and the Bank of England, and he writes articles and commentary and presentations and everything that moves the financial markets. So, Stefan, thank you very much. Today he's going to talk to us about the economics of trading with the UK post-Brexit. Over to you. Thank you.
Hi, yes, thank you, Tim. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can see my slides. If not, please give me a shout. Yes, thank you very much for your introduction. My name is Stefan Koopman, and I work as an economist at Rabobank. And in the next 10 minutes or so, I would like to shed some light on the latest developments in the UK economy, which faces two quite significant shocks at the same time, and how this could affect the currency and the trade of goods between the EU and the UK. So around this time last year, right after the withdrawal agreement was signed, I asked myself, is this going to be a hard Brexit, or is it going to be a so-called Brexit in a name only? Well, if I look at it only from an economic perspective, I would be inclined to think that it would be a very soft Brexit. After all, it's the most rational thing to do. But what these types of analysis misses is that over the past 2 or 3 years even, the whole concept of Brexit has been defined in a much harder way.
Hi, Stefan, can I just interrupt? Can you share your slides, please? So
yes. This is it.
Perfect.
It should work. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I forgot to hit the start button.
No problem.
Yes. Boris Johnson always points out that Brexit without taking back control of the UK's rules and regulations has no real purpose. And the EU, in turn, has been quite clear that this push for sovereignty from the UK side has a price, and it means that the UK will lose its direct access to the EU single market, and that trade between the EU and the UK will get much more complicated and much more costly. We've seen a lot of examples already today. The hope is that there will be a trade agreement that mainly focuses on the trading goods, and the aim is here to achieve zero tariffs and zero quotas. And that's some sort of consolation prize, I think, for today's audience, which is mostly in the business of trading plants, but it still works out pretty negatively for an entire economy that mostly relies on services production and services trade. So what is the economic impact of Brexit? Well, it will be quite complicated to measure, actually, because we're in the midst of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. And we now expect that the British economy will contract by 11.5% this year. And this is the steepest economic contraction that we've seen in the past 300 years. And we also expect that because of Brexit and some other risk, that there will be quite a slow recovery in the next 2 years. So we have a forecast in the table on the right-hand side of this slide. And if there is a deal, we forecast GDP growth at 3.9% in 2021 and at 5.4% in 2022. If we don't get a deal, then we think the economy will still grow 0.9% in 2021 and 3.5% in 2022. So even though we do forecast economic growth in both of these scenarios, we think that the recovery from COVID and from Brexit will be relatively incomplete, and it will take a long time before GDP is back at the pre-pandemic levels. And this is because of what Andy Haldane, he is the chief economist of the Central Bank of England, he calls it the unholy trinity of risks. And that means the coronavirus, practical realities of Brexit, and the expected rise in unemployment that we are about to see in 2021. And you can also see this in the chart on the left. GDP dropped around 25% actually during the spring because of the first wave of COVID. And there has been a recovery over the course of the summer, but it was far from enough to compensate for these massive losses in the spring. So even before the lockdown that we had in November, GDP was still more than 9% below its pre-pandemic peak. And the lockdown creates yet another contraction in GDP. And our forecast is that in the fourth quarter of this year, so that's the current quarter, the economy could contract around 3% or something like that, 3 or 4%. So it's much lower than what we've seen in the second quarter, because various sectors of the economy, such as manufacturing or construction, are still mostly open and performing actually quite well. So the pandemic and Brexit together is a very risky combination, but we don't expect that Brexit itself would lead to yet another recession in 2021. But this, of course, assumes that there will be a deal and that the transition towards this deal will be relatively orderly. But we will see that Brexit has some pretty serious long-term implications. And the chart on the left indicates that we expect that it will take quite a while before GDP returns back to this pre-pandemic level. In the orange line, you can see our projections for a deal, and it shows that that it will take until late 2023, perhaps early 2024, before we're back at where we were at the end of 2019. And if there's no deal, it will take even longer. And over time, quite a wide gap could open up between these two scenarios of a deal and no deal. And this gap could amount in 10 years' time towards around 2,600 pound sterling per capita per year. So that's quite a big effect. So even though the immediate impact of Brexit is being overshadowed by the virus, there's a clear consensus among economists that Brexit will have a negative effect on the UK's potential rate of economic growth. And you can see this potential rate as the rate of growth that the UK would typically achieve in a very normal year. So not this year, obviously. And this slide, what I'm showing you right now, is mostly for reference. You can look into it later, so I won't go into all the details, but there's quite a simple rule of thumb among economists. And that says the bigger the economic distance between the EU and the UK, the bigger the economic consequences for the UK. And this is simply because the UK relies more on its trade with the EU than the other way around. And we've also done some studies into this potential growth rate and found that it would be around a little lower than 2% if there was no Brexit at all. So if the 2016 referendum proved to be a remain, it will be around 1.5% if there is a Brexit with a deal, and it will be around 1% if there is no trade deal at all. And these may sound like small differences, but if you add these up over time, and you take a longer horizon, then it compounds quite quickly, and then you get this significant impact that I showed you in the previous slide. So eventually, the impact of Brexit will be larger than the impact of the virus. But even though the virus caused a deep recession in this year, and Brexit probably won't cause a deep recession. So if you then take a look at the currency, and here I have some good news and some bad news for you. The good news is that the Brexit has already been reflected in the currency since the plunge in the June 2016 referendum. And since then, you can see it on the chart on the right-hand side, sterling has been trading mostly sideways against the euro, with you have a natural ebb and flow that you typically see in these kind of markets. This implies that if the UK and the EU do strike a deal, we don't expect to see yet another sharp depreciation just because of the realities of Brexit. That said, even though the political risks will decline, if there's a deal, we don't think that the pound will appreciate much either. The economic uncertainty that the UK faces remains quite large, and the UK will be structurally less attractive for foreign capital than it would have been if there was no Brexit. So our central forecast is, and you can see that in the orange line in this chart, is that euro sterling would move from 89-90 cents that it is currently trading at to around 87 cents over the course of 2021. So you can see this again in the table below. It will be different if there's no deal, of course. The financial markets, if you look at the price action over the past couple of weeks and months, have been fairly optimistic on these Brexit negotiations. Even though there's a lot of rumbling going on and a lot of negative headlines, markets still think that this is part of the regular choreography of a deal. So if it still breaks down, and that's very much a possibility, the traders will try to sell the pound and buy back dollars or euros. But the risk of a very sharp depreciation, as it was in 2019, is less pronounced, I think. We reckon that we could see a move in case of a no-deal Brexit of euro sterling towards 93, perhaps 95 cents. You can see that in the light blue line on this chart. There's also a dotted line here, and this is the worst case scenario in where all the risks that the UK currently faces materialize. You can think of a no-deal Brexit, vaccines that are still delayed or ineffective, new lockdowns, a sharp rise in unemployment, and negative interest rates from the central bank. In such a scenario, which is definitely not our base case scenario, you could expect that the pound could move towards an exchange rate of 1 against the euro. And obviously that would make UK imports of EU goods very expensive. And also because we're likely to see some tariffs that are average around 8% under such a scenario. So that would be a worst case scenario that is definitely not our base case forecast. Then finally, how would this all affect the trade between the EU and the UK? Regardless of whether a deal is struck, the costs of trade will rise. Eline just told you all about it in the previous presentation because of this wide variety of non-tariff barriers. These have an equivalent tariff value of around 5 to 10%, and that depends on the product that you're trading. And this is broadly the same as the average tariff would be if there was a no-deal Brexit. So that basically implies that this deal is somewhere a halfway house between no deal and no Brexit at all. Then we also have the expected rise in unemployment. The UK government has been very, very generous with its furlough scheme, but it is now expected to stop in March. And the official forecast from the OBR is that the unemployment will rise to 7.5% in the summer of next year. And we think it could even be a little higher and forecast a rate between 7.5 and 8%. So what this means is that the income and the confidence of the UK consumers will remain under pressure, even as the economy starts to recover from COVID. And we forecast that total consumer spending on goods next year could drop 2 to 3% relative to what we have seen over the course of the summer, so after the lockdowns. And if you then take the exchange rate as well, it could be actually quite a positive factor of around 2%, given that we expect that the pound appreciates slightly vis-a-vis the euro. But this is again based on the premise of a deal. And otherwise, we would see a depreciation of around 4%. So if you had all these factors together, and then you also have to make a variety of assumptions on the price elasticity of your product. And these elasticities are the sensitivity of your sales volumes to a 1% change in the selling price, or a 1% change in the income of the consumer, or a 1% change in the relative price to other goods that don't need to be imported or don't face any tariff barriers. And we all know that these elasticities are quite high for luxury goods, which are nice to haves, but that they are lower for the necessities, which are need to have. So you have to judge for yourself whether your good is a nice to have or a need to have. But if you combine all these estimated elasticities with the expected increase in the prices, we can calculate that the expected drop in trade volumes from the EU to the UK is around 5% for basic products and around 15% for luxury products. So that's quite a steep drop in volume, and that rhymes relatively well with the analysis that Eline just provided you. And with that, I'd like to hand over the virtual mic back over to you, Tim.
Stefan, thank you very much. That was a really helpful insight into your predictions of what will or won't happen in the coming days on the different scenarios that we have ahead of us, and be interesting to find the views of the audience on whether they see us as a essential or a luxury item, 5 or 15% in terms of the drop in trade, and somewhere in between, I'm sure. Stefan, thank you very much for that, and we look forward to you joining us in the panel later on. We're going to, now we're a couple of minutes over time, but we're going to take a 5 minutes break just to give you a little pause before we start back. So please come back in 5 minutes and we will recommence. Thank you.
De World Horti Society Business Lounge is de nieuwe netwerkclub binnen World Horti Center. Deze community is voor iedereen met een hart voor de tuinbouw. Van telers tot toeleveranciers, van overheidsmedewerkers tot exporteurs, van veredelaars tot retail. Maar ook mensen van buiten de tuinbouwsector zijn welkom. Als je maar een hart hebt voor de tuinbouw.
Ik word erg enthousiast van initiatieven als de World Horti Society. Ik denk dat het belangrijk is, zeker in deze tijd, dat wij samen optrekken. Het beeld van onze sector moeten wij vormen, niet anderen. Dus als wij samen kunnen optrekken, dan is dat een grote meerwaarde voor ons, maar ook zeker voor onze sector.
Het World Horti Center is het kloppend hart van de glastuinbouw. En de World Horti Society is haar hartslag. Ontmoet nieuwe mensen, vergroot je netwerk en krijg energie van de goede gesprekken. Zo ontstaan nieuwe ideeën, nieuwe samenwerkingen en nieuwe verbindingen die het hart van de glastuinbouw sneller laten kloppen.
Niemand is volledig en zeker een bedrijf niet. Door lid te worden van zo'n businessclub kan je dat optimaliseren. En hoe goed we ook zijn op onszelf, met meer samenwerking, dan wordt alles toch beter. De businessclub van World Horti Center, dat zorgt voor die vooruitgang en voor die verandering dat dat mogelijk wordt.
De World Horti Society Business Lounge is de nieuwe netwerkclub binnen World Horti Center. Deze community is voor iedereen met een hart voor de tuinbouw. Van telers tot toeleveranciers, van overheidsmedewerkers tot exporteurs, van veredelaars tot retail. Maar ook mensen van buiten de tuinbouwsector zijn welkom. Als je maar een hart hebt voor de tuinbouw.
Ik word erg enthousiast van initiatieven als de World Horti Society. Ik denk dat het belangrijk is, zeker in deze tijd, dat wij samen optrekken. Het beeld van onze sector moeten wij vormen, niet anderen. Dus als wij samen kunnen optrekken, dan is dat een grote meerwaarde voor ons, maar ook zeker voor onze sector.
Het World Horti Center is het kloppend hart van de glastuinbouw. En de World Horti Society is haar hartslag. Ontmoet nieuwe mensen, vergroot je netwerk en krijg energie van de goede gesprekken. Zo ontstaan nieuwe ideeën, nieuwe samenwerkingen en nieuwe verbindingen die het hart van de glastuinbouw sneller laten kloppen.
Niemand.
Welcome back. We're going to carry on our webinar in preparation for Brexit. And we are pleased now to introduce, in the beginning of this year, won the silver award in the AIPH International Grower of the Year Awards. He's also a guest columnist in Floriculture International magazine. So welcome, Bruce, and we're going to pass over to you now to share your thoughts on upcoming Brexit. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Can you hear me? Yeah. As
Yes.
Tim said, my name is Bruce Harnett. I'm Managing Director of Connaught Park Plants. As Tim says, young plant producer, specialist propagator in England, United Kingdom. So I'm probably listening to a lot of the other speakers. I'm going to reiterate a little bit and add to some of the previous content. But I've been asked to speak to give my perspective of the current situation surrounding the impending EU exit, as a grower producer, both an importer and an exporter. So to put Connaught Park Plants into this context, the majority of our imports originate actually from third countries outside of the EU, but we also source a significant amount from or through the EU as well. And most of our sales at the same time are mainland UK, but nearly 10% of our sales revenue is contributed from exports to EU. Now, of course, including Northern Ireland, if, as Sally alluded to, if we were to adhere to the Northern Ireland Protocol, which essentially brings Northern Ireland into the EU regulation in so many respects, including the plant health area. So in general, my feelings is the complexities of the potential duty, the VAT and the tariffs, especially without a trade agreement to understand, has been mentioned several times. Which formalities will be waived, which will remain in force, is a significant concern for us and many others like us at this time. And I'm certainly not clear on whether things like the general system of preferences will be enacted, for example. We still don't know whether and how much the goods for import or export will eventually cost from January and July, and which of these costs can be deferred or paid on invoice, etc. There's still so much clarity that's required as far as I can see. The administrative tasks involve simply understanding the jargon, the many acronyms that we now need to be aware of. We could probably now fill a new dictionary to cover the glossary of terms that I've been looking at over the last 2 or 3 months related to the process of import and export to our nearest neighbours. The systems of Idomero, Peach Chief, whilst being aware we need to integrate eventually into goods vehicle movement systems, the GVMS, HMRC's NCTS, the new computerized transit system, whilst being aware also that AIPH, the import of products and animals, food and feed systems, and the CDS, customer declaration systems, is all to come, not to forget the TSS, the trade support for service for export to Northern Ireland. It's clearly overwhelming for nearly everybody concerned. There's so much information and so much misinformation, to be honest, being shared between suppliers, distributors, hauliers, couriers, some of which is actually deriving from people you would imagine to be trusted information sources. Even if we can put all of the systems into place, pull the necessary administration into the process, this is of course costing thousands of pounds, as I think has been mentioned already, and euros for each company involved. And I think some of the estimates of how much it's going to cost is probably underplayed, I think. And I don't think for any discernible benefit. So it's fair to say that part of the current confusion is due to the lack of preparation. COVID, of course, has been cited already as part of these delays, but it seems to me that there's too many phases and steps for both customs and plant health side. I understand the principle of gradual introduction of these new systems, but if we all have and crucially understand the final goal, but without a vision of understanding what's at the end, I feel like we're tasked simply with learning lots of new systems, some of which will be defunct very soon after the 1st of January, rather than simply preparing properly for the final stage with a clear vision of what that should be. Onto import checks. Sally mentioned earlier the border operating model is not yet fully defined. I have to say that I have significant concerns for the intention to perform all the checks at the port of entry from July 2021. I'm fairly confident that once imports are eventually arriving on UK shores, the BCPs will realise the volume and the bulk of the material will be logistically overwhelming, even if they intend to create new inland inspection sites, as well as only inspecting sample portions, has been cited, as they do for current third country live produce. I'm pretty sure that even if the 4-hour service levels are met by well-meaning plant health inspectors, they'll be under incredible time pressure to get product checked at PODs before input. That's for the imports, of course. And also on the export side, I also hear many suppliers that are concerned about the turnaround times for short notice deliveries, in particular for export, particularly fresh produce with the perishable product, short shelf life. The notification periods required at the moment, current guidance is 7 days to organise plant health inspections, make the just-in-time export seem totally non-practicable and non-viable. I think it's also fair to say that there have been some moves to help ensure that the import from the EU is as smooth as possible, with some delays in the cost and the phasing of the process, although eventually there's still a massive additional burden for importers, exporters and their hauliers. I know that my inbox personally is steadily increased on these Brexit related emails. Several per day are asking if we've registered for X or signed letters of authorization for Y, etc. And on that phytosanitary biosecurity barriers, we all see, and I think Sally again mentioned earlier, the necessity for tight biosecurity in order to prevent unwanted transfer of pest and disease across borders, whichever way you go. Threat to indigenous species is in nobody's interest, but we have to realise that there's no immediate change to biosecurity risk from January the 1st, and I hope the pragmatists realise this when we actually eventually get there. There have been calls to delay the introductions of phytosanitary checks for imports from the EU, and that includes what are known as the high priority plants. That's most of the plants, to be honest, that will be exported for sure, until the system and infrastructure is well embedded and understood. One of the reasons for the calls for a delay is that there's been so much confusion on the exact interpretation of the regulations. The fact is the regulations for EU imports have a basis in history, that's the import or export to the EU, if you like, have a basis in history primarily geared towards imports from countries much further afield than neighbouring GB. At this moment, there is a list of prohibited plants issued from EU authorities, such as Petunia being a solanaceous plant, among many other species of grass and fragaria, etc., that we are unable to ship to our customers in Europe, including Northern Ireland. And I understand that equivalence on this is trying to be sought, and I hope that is done urgently, because at the moment we have many orders which we simply won't be able to ship if the rules continue. Perhaps naively, I hope that if we can overcome the politics of the negotiations in the very near term, then the pragmatic solutions along the lines of what the HDA is suggesting, I think we can abolish all the incredible amounts of green tape and utilise a system of plant passports that is working at the moment, a self-issued passport that is verified by means of frequent plant inspections. Annual plant passport ratification seems perfectly sensible to me, much along the lines of what Sally said earlier in a trusted trader type situation, using a scheme that's already essentially been created, plant passports. And of course, a lot of people are listening and listening to the Rabobank you know, we might say that this is our fault. We should stop moaning about it. It certainly is our fault that we have to endure these difficulties. This has been brought on by the British people following the 2016 referendum and subsequent actions of our government. And it's now for us to try and find the best solutions given the circumstances. And I think it'd be naive to think that there were not some potential positives that come from this. Better communication, perhaps, consolidation of supplies, better organisation between the UK and EU. And of course, if I look selfishly from a GB point of view, the harder this becomes to import from the EU into the UK, the more likely that customers are turning, of course, to UK supply. I accept that. And we'll be doing, of course, everything to capture the potential increase as a GB based company with the increase of demand that's coming from the UK. But we'd be foolish to think, foolish to think that we can supply the huge demand that the UK grows without import from the EU, without significant changes over many, many years. Also, we seem to be significantly disadvantaged currently as plant exporters at this particular time. So as far as I'm concerned, we need to establish some sort of level playing field. Sensible trading relationship is the preferred model rather than one which sees significant reduction in trade, both import and export, due to the barriers, the administrative, logistical and financial burdens. Thank you very much.
Bruce, thank you very much. That was a great overview of how you see the impact on your business. So thank you for sharing that. And we look forward to having you join us in the panel if anyone has any questions for Bruce. There are no slides for Bruce's presentation. He was just talking from his heart and his experience about what's coming. So please, if you have any questions for him, then specify that on the chat. Thank you, Bruce, again. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our final speaker, which is Mr. Henk Westerhoff, who's the president of Royal Anthos since 1985, in fact, and he's chairman of iBulb since 2011. And he is going to talk to us today about how EU growers are reacting to Brexit and what they are doing. So, Henk, welcome to the webinar, and we pass over to you now.
Tim, thank you very much. And I would like to ask Lars to start my presentation because he would take care of it. Yeah, thank you very much, Lars. My name is Henk Westerhoff, as Tim already introduced me. I am the president of Royal Anthos, and Royal Anthos is an association located in the Netherlands, and we look after the interests of our members, and those members are in particular trade companies of the flower bulb and nursery stock. We, as an association, we are involved in national and international plant health regulations. As Tim already said, we have a foundation called iBulb, and iBulb does the promotion of flower bulbs and bulb flowers worldwide. We develop and invest a lot of money in research, and we are also involved in issues regarding quality and sustainability. And a new chapter to our services towards our members is, of course, Brexit, because this is an issue that is really important, and per day we get many, many questions about what's going to happen and what do I have to do as a company, and how do I have to react on the things that are coming up. What we see, and that is, I think this is something that I used from a presentation from Tim Hedema, our agricultural counselor in the Netherlands, who gives a lot of support to my association, but also to the companies in the Netherlands to learn more about all the regulations with regard to Brexit and what's going to happen. But as we all see, and that's also what Sally said, with time is running out, and that is true. We have just 29 days, or as Sally said, 20 days to go, and in 20 days I hope to learn whether we will have a deal or a no deal. But the situation is very difficult for the trade companies here in the Netherlands, not only the trade but also the growers, because there is a lot of concern about what will happen, in particular with regard to phytosanitary issues, but also from an economical standpoint, what will be the effect of Brexit on the trade. And Royal FloraHolland, Eline already said something about it, and Stefan in his presentation from the Rabobank also gave an update about possible consequences of Brexit, in particular with no deal. What we have to realize here in the Netherlands, and that's what we learn our members, whether it will be a deal or no deal, that in case of a deal, our members have to meet special new requirements with regard to phytosanitary inspections, and they also have to deal with customs. So if there is a deal, there certainly will be a big difference for the exporters. And what we learn from the exporters in the flower bulb business is that most of their export is already to non-European countries. So they are well experienced in how to handle the inspections, how to handle all the paperwork for customs, but also the phytosanitary certificates. But Eline already referred to it as well. We also have a lot of companies here in the Netherlands who have no experience with export to non-European countries. And for them, it's a big challenge to meet all the requirements which are a follow-up or a consequence of Brexit. So that is certainly an issue for those companies. What we see for our industry, for the flower bulbs and the nursery stock, the UK is a very important market. For the flower bulbs, we talk about an export value per year of about 70 million euro, and that's approximately 6% of our total turnover in 2019. But what you see in the nursery stock is about 240 million euro, and that's 17%. After Germany, the UK is for the nursery stock business the most important export market. So people, the companies here in the Netherlands are very concerned because they do not know exactly what's going to happen, and it certainly will have an effect on their trade. What you also see, and that's what I also would like to say something about, is the customs in the UK, the customs from that the exporters deal with. On the one hand, we deal with retailers, in particular with the sales of pre-packed flower bulbs, which are used by the consumers for garden use. But on the other hand, we also have a large export of flower bulbs and nursery stock products to professional growers. For example, flower bulbs, tulip bulbs, or lily bulbs, which are used by the growers in the UK for the production of flowers, which are sold to the consumers and to the retail in the UK. But on the other hand, we also have to deal with the municipalities and the landscaping market, and last but not least, with the mail order. And why do I refer to these customers? Well, there is a lot of confusion here in the Netherlands, and it also depends who is your customer in the UK. On the one hand, we see that if you supply flower bulbs, for example, to a retail outlet or to the retail, we all know that the big retailers have their own distribution center, and the distribution center, what we learned, that is called the place of destination. That is also the place where the inspection can take place, and that is also the place to issue a plant passport. But the situation is quite different for an exporter if he delivers his products to the municipalities. Because what is the place of destination? What is the place where the inspection will take place? And what are the requirements when a truck is loaded with planting material for more than 3 locations? And then we get a lot of questions from exporters. They say, where does the inspection take place in such a case? And that's also something that Sally referred to, what she called a multiple drop. But these are questions that exporters here in the Netherlands deal with, and they urgently ask for questions. But we are not in a position to give all the questions, to answer all the questions, because it is not quite clear what DEFRA exactly wants and what the requirements will be in the next for the next year after Brexit. If you look to economics, we are not in a situation from the flower bulb business, and also not from the nursery stock business, that we did a commercial impact like Royal FloraHolland did. But what we also learned from the presentation of Stefan, in case that there will be no deal, it certainly will have an effect on the sales of our products to the UK. The currency is a big issue, and what I learned from Stefan is that he said, well, if there might be in a no-deal situation a depreciation of about 4%. As I said before, we have a lot of export to non-European countries, and we know from experience that a devaluation of a currency has a huge effect on the sales and the export of our products. So we are very concerned about that. Another issue that we deal with is the import tariffs. Import tariffs, there is no import tariffs, as we have learned by now, that for the nursery stock it's 0%, but for the flower bulbs there will be an import tariff. And of course, the exporters here in the Netherlands also have to deal with additional costs. Eline already referred to it, but as I said, we have to deal with customs, we have to deal with phytosanitary inspections, and also a phytosanitary certificate has to be issued, and it all has to be paid. And as far as logistics is concerned, just-in-time delivery will be very, very difficult and perhaps not possible in the near future. And it is very risky because when you have a delay, you also have to keep in mind that it will lead to extra cost for the exporters or perhaps also for their customers. So from an economical point of view, and that's also where Stefan referred to, he said, Brexit will be more sensitive to products, to so-called luxury goods. And Tim asked the question, do our products belong to luxury goods, or is it a need to have? Well, to answer that question, I think that most of our products are so-called luxury products. So I think that when, in case of a no deal, it certainly will have a big effect. And if we talk about a reduction or a drop of 15% of the volume, that will have a huge impact on the flower bulb business and also on the nursery stock business. I also mentioned something about local for local. In the nursery stock business, we learn a lot, and we hear rumors that people in the UK say, well, we should refer more to UK produced products instead of importing them from EU countries or non-EU countries. That also might have effect on the sales and the export volume from the Netherlands to the UK, because as I already explained, we talk about an export volume of about 245 million euro per year. On the other hand, if you go for local to local in the UK, it also might be a challenge. Let's say if we have the export of flower bulbs, tulip bulbs, lily bulbs, as I said, to professional growers who sell their product to the retail in the UK. If the product is sold as local for local, locally produced, that is something that can give a push to the export and the sales of this in the UK grown product. For your information, and as an example, we run big promotion campaigns in the Scandinavian countries, in particular for the cut tulips, where we tell the people and the retail and the customers and the consumers that they have to buy locally produced tulips, and that is a big success. So perhaps it is a challenge for the future that we can also start such a campaign in the UK. You never know. What we do know here in the Netherlands is that the custom requirements and the phytosanitary inspections, I think there is no discussion about it. Also based on the information that we get from our government, the Department of Agriculture. They give a lot of information with the help of our agricultural councillor in the UK. So I think that as far as the information we give to our members, it is, as far as the situation here in Holland is concerned, people know what to do and how to act. The situation is different, and I was very glad with the presentation of Sally because she referred to some kind of the issues that we do not know here in the Netherlands. The import inspections, where and when. Of course, we know a little bit more, and of course, we have learned about the place of destination. But I already referred to the situation per customer, whether it is a municipality or a retail. How do the inspections take place? Where do the inspections take place? And how to issue an English plant passport? That is one of the questions we deal. But the most important part at this moment, and we get a lot of questions about that, and Eline also referred to it, is phytosanitary standards. At the moment, we live in a European Union, and we deal, and the UK too, as far as the plant health regulations is concerned. It is clear, it is a harmonized system, and it is harmonized standards, and we know how to act, and we know what the requirements are. But for the future, it is still uncertain what will be the phytosanitary standards that the UK will use. One of the questions we get, and it's just very practical, is will it be free of soil or practically free of soil? Must the products or have the products to be free of soil or practically free of soil? This is a big issue because we already have companies who make preparations for next export season, and they have to know now. We heard and we also saw draft requirements for phytosanitary standards. We learned that they were issued last week, but honestly speaking, it is very, very complicated to learn about what will it be, what will be the situation, and what will be the new standards, if there will be any new standards, or whether the UK will use the standards that we have now in the European Union. So this is something that, well, we would like to see, but I know it is a wish and I do not know whether it can be fulfilled. But a delay of the implementation of the plant health regulations, that would be good. I think it is, as I said, we have a couple of days to go, 20 days or 29 days. And I think it's not realistic to come to an agreement on all the issues that we deal with at this moment. There are so many questions, and I think it will be in the benefit of the exporters, but also in the benefit of the UK importers, if we come to a delay on the plant health regulations, and that we take time to come to an agreement in that respect. Well, Tim, this was the issues that we have to deal with. These are the uncertainties that our members deal with. These are the uncertainties that the growers in the Netherlands deal with. And honestly speaking, I do not know whether we get an clear answer before the end of the year. And that's the reason that I would be in favor of having a delay in the implementation of the plant health regulations. Thank you very much.
Hank, thank you very much. Thanks for that overview of the situation that Dutch traders, exporters are dealing with. And of course, as with many of these speakers, we raise many questions as much as we do answers on what is happening. Thank you very much for that. Now, please, can the panel members stay and join so everyone come back in, if you wouldn't mind. And we have some questions that we're going to put to you. We have not a lot of time and we have a lot of questions, so that is the problem. So if we do not answer all of the questions that have been raised, what we are going to do is try and answer them afterwards, and then we will send you an email with the best answer we can provide after the event. So let's go back to the beginning. We had Sally. And thank you again, Sally, for that overview. I have a big list of questions for you. I think I maybe will just pick out one or two. One of the questions is can we find a list somewhere of which plants are high risk?
When you say high risk, is this the high priority plants that you're referring to? So those that are regulated from the 1st of January?
Well, this is just the question that has been raised, but I guess so. Yes, it may be, though. Is there any way in which that list is likely to be broken down in any more detail?
Well, if it's all regulated plants from the 1st of January, then it's everything that is currently within the EU plant passport regime. So that's all plants for planting, but they're not high risk plants. They're high priority plants. So I think in my presentation I explained. Originally, they were labelled as high risk, and that was confusing because the EU currently has a high risk list of plants which are prohibited for import from third countries. So GB will not be able to import to EU that list because we will be a third country, but GB has exempted the EU from that list. So therefore, that high risk plant list is exempted for EU to GB trade. So this starts with Acer and ends with Quercus and all of those guys. So there is a list, but it's not prohibited to import into GB, but it is prohibited to export to Northern Ireland.
Okay, just to complicate it, do you imagine a situation where we can end up with a list of plants that we can assume are not going to require an inspection at a pod, and to be able to come right through? So
assume 10% minimum inspections of everything finished going to a place of destination. it will be more than that. The intention is more. And now we're talking about the frequency of inspections and which species are more likely to attract an inspection. So we are working with DEFRA on that. We have an initial list, and it certainly starts at the top of the Xylella high risk host list. Now, at the moment, we have no hint from DEFRA that they're going to reintroduce those national measures. I think they're going to go down the route of import inspections and very high frequency, like 100% maybe, rather than there won't be any ban on those commodities. They're too important to the UK trade, and that's something the HTA have made it very clear to DEFRA.
Okay. Thank you, Henk. I can see some expressions on Henk's face for these things.
Yeah.
Did you want to make any comment on that?
Yeah, well, the question I have to Sally is that why does it take that long that we get more information about the requirements from DEFRA? Now we're running out of time. As I said, we have 20 days to go, and a lot of things have not been solved yet. What is the reason that DEFRA didn't give the information earlier? Is it that complicated, or what? No, what's the reason?
I don't have the answer for you, Henk. Although we have communication regularly with DEFRA about all of these details, I think there are so many details, and it might be a bit my fault as well, because I keep coming up with issues that they need to have answers to. But then we need to work through those issues. So we need to have answers about how many places of destination can a phytosanitary cover. All of that information needs to be sorted through and worked through in systems. So I can't speak on behalf of DEFRA. I'm sure they've got reasons why we're coming to this so late. But there are a lot of reasons to do with the complexity of this year. We've all come to it very late. We even start communicating with DEFRA regularly until July. There seems to be other things going on. And we thought we'd sort of planned for no deal, but it turns out it was a lot more complicated than that once we get down to the nitty gritty.
Can I ask one other question? If I may say so, Tim, do you think there is any chance that we come to a delay, in particular on phytosanitary issues?
The political will has to be there, Hank. We've got a full-on, high-profile political campaign that kicked off recently. We held a round table for politicians last week. We're meeting regularly with ministers in government to put forward our case. We'll see questions coming up, written questions to government from our political supporters. They're continuously coming up. I think we've got about 12 in for answering at the moment, all highlighting the fact and pushing the ask that import inspections should be suspended, and the action of pre-notification, although it's useful because it then gathers trade data, which can then be applied properly to target the right inspections to the right places. And we need that import data in order to do that. But actually pre-notification until IT systems are up and running and fit for purpose, that should be put on hold until at least the 1st of July. That's our stance at the moment. But
well, if I can come in here, Tim.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem to me, I know there's a lot of concerns, and I get emails from potential suppliers and importers, but it does seem like DEFRA have essentially wiped aside a lot of the restrictions because they've tried to make the trade inward to GB quite smooth. To me, there seems to be more of an issue of the export, which of course is a lot smaller element, but that's more of a concern to me because of things like the high priority, what they call the high priority plants, which I mentioned in my little presentation, talking about things like all of those petunias and calabacoas, for example, that we won't be able to send out from GB to Ireland at this particular point in time, including Northern Ireland. So I think actually the import side of things, aside from having to make a phytosanitary certificate, which of course I don't want either, for all of our imports. But I think it seems to me, I don't know whether you agree, Sally, that generally the transition into import is not as bad as the export side of things.
That's quite correct, Bruce. I concur with that.
Okay, thanks for that comment, Bruce, as well. I mean, we have a question about whether from the EU side it's possible for them to identify a pod point for where the inspection can carry out. Can they contact from DEFRA outside, or does it have to be done from within the UK? Sally?
So you must have a UK-based agent or a limited company. You have to have a company in GB to act as the importer. That importer can then do the pre-notification, which includes registering a place of destination. So really, GB customers need to be registering themselves as places of destination, unless you've rented a warehouse, for example, to be that place of destination. Does that? I know that's a bit garbled, but it's a yes and a no.
Yeah. Okay. We understand the confusion of the situation. Will there be AIPH inspectors based in the Netherlands to support the plant health certification leaving the Netherlands, for example?
Not from day one, but I think I touched on that in my presentation, that that's one of the things that we're looking at, and there's appetite for that, certainly within DEFRA and AIPH, because it would make their lives easier, and it would also enable us to streamline, and you guys to streamline exports and imports. But it's not the answer for the whole supply chain. It's just another element that we could add in to make life easier for us. Yeah.
And Henk, I'm wondering, the suppliers who are supplying to landscape projects directly, how are they managing in terms of the inspection system at the moment?
Well, at the moment, there is no inspection in the UK.
Well, I mean, after 1st of January, what is there?
Yeah, well, that is one of the questions that I raised. People do not know, honestly speaking, and in particular, if you deliver your planting material to 3 or 4 different locations, and that's what's happening, then the question is, what is the place of destination? Where will it be inspected? And we get a lot of questions like that, because if you go to a retail chain, then probably the distribution center will be the place where the place of destination where an inspection can take place. But if you supply to a municipality or landscaping, then honestly speaking, I do not know, and I don't know, and we cannot answer that question to our members because it's not clear. And those are the issues that our people deal with. So there are a lot of question marks in the air, and we do not get the right answer at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And we will. I know that we will. When we find out that answers of those things as well, we can help to communicate them back to you as well once the information comes through. I wonder if we can just go to Eline, please, for a question. And I wonder what, from the analysis work that you did in FloraHolland, what are you planning to do with the outcome of this analysis?
Yes, that's a good question, Tim. What the analysis brought us is, of course, much more insight in the consequences of the Brexit. But it would be a little bit late if we would act just now preparing for the Brexit. So since the beginning, when the Brexit was announced, or when it was clear that the Brexit was going to happen, of course, we followed the developments very close from our lobby department. And actually the main goal for us is to mitigate the risk of the Brexit. So to when possible, to keep the import duties as low as possible and as little as trade barriers as little as possible. We don't do that by ourselves, because in the Netherlands on national level, we work very close together also with the VGB, the Trade Association in the Netherlands, and on European level together with the Union Fleur. And I think the 1st of January next year, we know whether we have been successful, but actually, that's what we're aiming for, to mitigate the risk. Yeah, sure. And on one hand, we've just seen a lot of the costs and the issues that they're facing. Do you see opportunities as well as you look forward? Yeah, the risk, like I mentioned in my presentation, might be that there might be a shift from direct deals which don't go anymore via the Netherlands. But what I hope for, and I also got a feeling that since we know the Brexit is about to happen, that we've seen in the Netherlands that everybody has started preparing them, at least most of them very well already last year, the year before, although still not everything is clear. But what I've seen and noticed is that we have started preparing as good as possible, as well as possible, from entrepreneurs, but also in very close connection with the Dutch customs and the NVWA, which I would like to mention as well in this webinar as well, that I think that's very unique, the close contact and also the constructive contact we have during this process. So I hope that the Netherlands will be very, very well prepared, and that also in this new situation, that might be also perhaps a unique selling point, that we have organized the process so very well that we will be attractive, or perhaps even more attractive to facilitate in the flows and the commercial flows, logistic flows via the Netherlands to the UK.
Okay, that's an interesting point you make finally there. I mean, the last question I had for you was what it means what your analysis means in terms of the competitiveness of the Netherlands in this marketplace.
Yeah, actually that question has a bit of kind of relation with your former question. When it comes to the competitiveness, if you look price-wise, then of course when the import duty will be charged, then EU flowers and flowers from the Netherlands will be less interesting compared to flowers from the non-EU. But I hope this, price is just one thing. I won't say not important, but it's just one aspect while doing trade. So I hope, while we have already a long business relationship with the UK, and also if we try to organize the process very smooth and very well, then I hope that we can be at least attractive for flower business like we are today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you for your presentation and review of the economic situation. We have a question from the audience. Will there be any changes in transferring money from the UK to the EU or vice versa?
Hi, yes, yeah. Well, as I understand it, the UK will maintain its participation in the single euro payments area, even though the SEPA has a much wider geographic scope than just the EU. So SEPA transactions could still take place after the January 1st, even though these typically need more information, more details than if the UK remained a participant of the single market of the EU. And the European Payments Council is one of the entities that is involved in these matters, and they have urged all payment services providers to implement all sorts of measures to ensure that a smooth processing of these cross-border payments. And I know that there's been a big project within the bank, but of course I'm just a simple economist. So if you want to have any specific details on this, I have to get back to you or Arno, as I see it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I wonder, what is your advice to EU growers who are trading in the UK in light of the predictions that you've made?
My advice to them. Well, one of the advices that I typically have, if your export is too much concentrated into one single export market, you are typically very skeptical to these kind of event risks. So my